the investigation is concerned, yes, it's true. There's an investigation into the $290,000, but perhaps not to prejudice the outcome of the ACC investigation, I'd like to just limit my comments on that and urge that we wait patiently. Today we had an information from across the ACC that the report will be out soonest. So the ACC report will be out within the shortest possible time. But however, the Gender and Equal Opportunity was tasked, with varying activities agreed upon in the implementation of the gender mainstreaming within the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces. So this morning, in essence, was meant to undertake a number of activities. Firstly, it was meant to establish the setting up of the Gender and Equal Opportunity Office itself. It was meant to foot bills for the implementing partners who are coming from WIMSEL Africa across from Ghana. Training and gender focal points across the force. The money was also meant to empower and train gender focal individuals to, administer justice at every level within the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces. Sensitization of the various levels within the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces. We as an institution are divided into command echelons, and each of those echelons are to benefit from the training package. And we're to develop a gender-sensitive and responsive policies for the RSLAF. Conduct DOBAs with female personnel across the force. Training of decision-making level across MOD and gender mainstreaming. So these are all benchmarks that were identified, to fund, to address $290,000. And again, the development of a gender responsive policies across the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, and this includes the 2 gender policies that I flagged up, the one on sexual exploitation or sexual harassment, and the one on fraternization. So these are all products of what that money was meant for. Moving on to the next item on the charge report. It says since 2020, the ACC has been investigating an offense alleged or suspected to have violated the ACC 2008 Act. I don't know where they got this from. This is what Donald Trump would call fake news, as far as I'm concerned. It's purely fake. There is no short investigation conducted by the ACC as far as the alleged to have violated the 2008 Act. This is purely fake news. Next, moving on, the Gender and SSR project continues to suffer from multiple alleged corruption and gross mismanagement. I don't know where they got this from. As we speak, there's what is called a barrier assessment going on, which is being funded by another organization called the LC Foundation, and this was done in collaboration with UN Women, and this was done in collaboration with the UN Women Foundation, the LC Foundation. So, if you look at item 10, they're asking a question. They're suggesting that the donors or Norwegians are unsatisfied with the implementation of the project and based on the alleged misappropriation and mismanagement. That's what the charge report is saying. But my reference to that, if the donors are unsatisfied with the implementation of the project, why is it that the institution has just benefited from another project from the Canadians, the Canadian fund, which is tagged the LC Foundation? So if they are saying that the Norwegians are unsatisfied, these are institutions, we know how they operate, they collaborate, they look at best practices, there are issues that are cross-cutting, that they cross-reference one another. And so if there are issues of unsatisfactory performance on our side, there's no reason why the Canadians would come in. But we've just benefited $184,000 from the Canadian fund. So it goes to show that, you know, we're doing what is right, and we're not, in any case, these institutions are not in any case unsatisfied with our performance. In fact, this time round, we're conducting a comprehensive barrier assessment to increase participation of women in the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, and to propose a clear path on how to make progress in deployment of women to multinational peacekeeping organizations. So that is what this morning is meant for. And we've hired a local consultant, and they're conducting the barrier assessment as we speak. Like I said, the project cost about $184,000, and it's ongoing. The next is, while the project is being investigated, MOD recently nominated 4 senior MOD staff to serve as signatories to the remaining funds. On the last, on the $290,000 budget that I mentioned, which was with the sole signatories as the DG and the principal accountant, there's still a residual amount in that particular account. And the amount is it's in the region of $49,000 to $50,000. And so for us to access that amount, that account, it is proper that we put in a request for change of signatories. And that is what we've done. And there's nothing criminal in doing that. Nothing absolutely criminal in doing that. Yeah. So, the next, they say there are troubling incidents of corruption at 34 Hospital. Troubling incidences of corruption at 34 Hospital. And then they went on to give a litany of problems at the 34 Military Hospital. But perhaps to do justice to this particular area, I'll call on the CEO of the Joint Medical Unit, the person of Colonel Dr. Stephen Sivali, to address the issues raised in the report itself. Thank you.
Good afternoon all. I am Colonel Dr. Stephen Sivali. I am the commander for the Joint Medical Unit, and 34 Military Hospital is the headquarters of the Joint Medical Unit. The primary responsibility of 34 Military Hospital and its medical services in general is to provide medical services to serving men and women of the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, as well as their dependents, which includes wives, husbands, and their children. But beyond that, we also provide services to the general public, as we may have seen during the Ebola epidemic, and of course the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. But with regards to this report, I have to say, well, for any research or report, you look for accuracy, which it completely lacks. You look for balance, which is totally absent, because it does not seem to have consulted enough and sourced information from the correct places. And by extension, it is not credible. Let me just comment on specific issues raised. The first I will mention is the assertion that the X-ray machine at the 34 Military Hospital has been inoperable since 2017 and has still not been repaired. Equipment in general are subject to the law of time. and they are bound to wear out, and from time to time there is need to repair them. And for the X-ray at 34 Military Hospital, yes, it has been functional on and off. It has witnessed a lot of problems since 2017. But the reality on the ground is that besides this equipment or this X-ray that this report is referring to, we have another X-ray which is functioning now at the infectious disease unit. Beyond that, the Ministry of Defense has taken steps to procure additional X-ray units, and I am also aware that we have also won a Global Fund grant in which X-ray is to be procured, and the procurement process is well advanced. But it is not just about X-ray when we talk about imaging diagnostics. Through partnerships, we have ultrasound services running. And really the conversation at the Ministry of Defense is not at X-ray level. We are talking about CT scan and MRI scans, which at the moment, there is no public hospital that has one functioning. And that is the level of conversation. And I am quite confident that it is a matter of months, but these are things that the public will be able to benefit from 34 Military Hospital. The second point is 21 members of the MOD RSLAF plus one representative from the supplier for the X-ray machine set up to evaluate whether or not the machine was functional has issued no statement on the findings. This is false. That is why I say I don't know if this is a research. I have a copy of the report here. The team consisted of now the verification team comprises of Defense Medical Services, the Logistics Unit, representative from the Joint Force Command, the Joint Medical Unit, the Joint Logistics Unit. I have to commend Anti-Corruption. Anti-Corruption Commission was present, including the supplier, and the Military Audit Department, DOMA, was also present. Well, I will commend Anti-Corruption for them plugging into following through procurement processes and making sure they are accurate. And I think it is a spirit of prevention rather than doing anything otherwise. So that is false. The third point here is MOD/RSLAF collects over $36,000 quarterly from the state for X-ray fees. My responsibility as a commander is to put requests for supplies I need. The government has established procurement policies, and suppliers are paid. In fact, for some of these supplies, not by the Ministry of Defense, but by the Ministry of Finance. So, the idea that the Ministry of Defense collects, it does not have a place. Suppliers are paid by the Ministry of Finance. So this has no basis. It's rubbish. Fourth, at the same time as it is receiving funds from the government for X-rays, military personnel are sent to private hospital for X-ray scanning and other personal expense. The 34 Military Hospital does not have all the services that is required to address all forms of health needs. And there is no single hospital in this country that does. We do not have CT scan, so therefore we have to send to the private sector. If a patient comes in during a period when the X-ray machine is not functioning, it is appropriate that we send to where we can get services in a timely manner. And we ensure we cover particularly the cost of emergencies. There is no system or institution that can cater comprehensively in totality for all the spectrum of health needs. It's practically not possible, and that is why we talk about service package. You go to Israel Army, they tell you about service package, and they debate in parliament what is to be included in that package and what cannot be included in that package. You come to Sierra Leone, we talk about service package and prioritize maternal and child health, and we prioritize importing of anti-malaria over anti-cancer drugs. And it is in the same spirit that we provide services. Entitled personnel get free inpatient and outpatient services. They do not pay for consultations, they do not pay for admissions, they do not pay for medicines when it is available, except we run out of supplies. They do not pay for laboratory services, especially those that we have. And it is the reality. The other point here is medical storage facility is too small, and despite several recommendations to expand the facility, there has been no action to expand it. The 34 military hospital, especially in recent times, has expanded rapidly. And this means that we have expanded beyond the capacity of not just the storage facility we have, but other elements as well. I know that the engineer department was tasked by the Ministry of Defense to conduct a survey and take steps for the expansion of, it's not just about a store, but we are talking about a warehouse at the moment. Because 34 military hospital, I can guarantee, among most, if not all, public hospitals in the last 24 months has probably undergone the biggest amount of change. I will summarize by saying that I invite you to 34 military hospital. As I speak to you, we just got an emergency, a soldier, and he has been sent to life care for CT scan. And that responsibility is taken by the Army, even though we do not have CT scan. We have transformed our infrastructure, brand new roads. We have expanded our admission capacity to probably around 3 to 4 times for each department. It's ongoing. Our accident and emergency unit was 3 beds. It is now 15. Polished. Our pediatric unit was about 20 beds. I have to thank the support of Her Excellency the First Lady. It is 100 beds now, to be open in a matter of weeks. We have established a brand new, and the construction is ongoing, training units for nurses at a higher level of training, administrative units, and a lot more. But not only that, within the 34 military hospital, but when you talk about the medical system in the Army, Quite recently, we commissioned the 5 Brigade Field Hospital. We also did turning of the sword for 4 Brigade Field Hospital. So we are getting a field hospital in the south. We have now, in fact, in the south. The one for the north is ongoing, and of course, we have one in the east. That is the Daru Field Hospital. So the medical system in the military, of all things, has undergone tremendous positive change, and not to mention the capacity we have demonstrated in terms of emergencies, be it mudslide situations, be it Ebola, be it COVID, or anything that may befall us in the future. So therefore, this report is baseless. It is not credible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen Sibali, for that brief account of the 34 hospital itself and the progress that we've achieved so far. I think it is clear that rather than just hopping on an X-ray machine that has been there for ages, it is important that we look at the broader perspective as to what has been achieved. We've gone a long way to revamp the 34 military hospital. And I think we can proudly say that in the shortest possible time, that hospital will be the envy of this country. It will, simply because as far as improvements are concerned, there's a lot that has been achieved. And besides, there is also the Infectious Disease Prevention Control Center up at the 34 Hospital. That is way, way above all centers in this country. It's been run jointly by the Chinese and our personnel. And so there's so much going on at 34 Hospital. It would have been credible if Charlie would have, man up to face the Ministry of Defense or to face the senior management, and with these allegations, so that we find the ground, we find a footing as to how we can trash them. But instead, that was not the case, and yeah, we are where we are at the moment. I'll call on the Director of Gender to zero in on the next issue, which has to do with the gender mainstreaming in the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces. Thank you.
Good afternoon all. I'm Colonel M.S. Fofana, the Director of Gender and Equal Opportunities at the Ministry of Defense. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. On the issue of the gender mainstreaming in the RSLAF, you all agree with me that in the year 2009, the Gender Directorate was established to look into the gender gap in the RSLAF, and also to promote the gender mainstreaming and empowerment. The very first commander of that department was no less a person but a brigadier. She's now retired, Brigadier Kestoria Kabia. She worked tremendously with the senior management to ensure that the gender mainstreaming issue is taken seriously. As I speak, in 2019, there was a recruitment drive that targeted mainly women. And in that drive, we recruited 252 other ranks. Out of that, 59 were officers. All these were women. This was done so as to bridge the gap, to narrow the gap that did exist before. In 2020, and 2021, another recruitment drive was conducted, wherein the RSLAF, the government of Sierra Leone, recruited 549 personnel, out of which 144 were female, the other ranks. We also had 10 women as officers and 51 male officers. As I speak, on the United Nations Peacekeeping Front, we have 28% of female representation in the UN, close to 30%, that's the UN standard. In totality, the female strength in the RSLAF stand at 12%. This will tell you that the RSLAF and the government is very serious about women representation in the RSLAF. UN standard is 15%. Sierra Leone can boast of 12%. I think if we are not doing excellently, but I think we are not doing bad. We are very close to our target. So the issue of gender mainstreaming is very, very much serious in terms of our considerations. Also, the women that we have in the RSLAF, the service women, they do compete with their male counterpart in terms of courses. As I'm speaking now, the junior staff course, they have just been loaded on, wherein we have women participating in those courses. Yes, of course, we respect them, and we also look into their empowerment. As I speak, we have some in the institutions, educational institutions, where we have a very large number of women there also. As I say, they all compete with their male counterpart. Once you have the requisite requirement, there is no biasness there. You will be given your due recognition. So with that, I end my talk, and maybe we'll wait for the question and answer session. If there are any other issues that require to be addressed, we will zero on them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colonel Fofana. I think the data or the figures are clear as far as progress that we've made. And it's clear that we're almost reaching the 30% with the UN set as far as resolution 1335 is concerned, 25 is concerned, the affirmative action on women's participation in United Nations peacekeeping operation. We're now at almost 28%. So we're making progress, we're scoring, and for Charlie to come up with a report that is counterproductive, I think it's counterintuitive in a way, and it goes to show that if only we can collaborate further, perhaps we should be able to address the concerns raised by any organization. But on that score, I'd like to give a voice to the only female on the team to also throw some perspective into the gender mainstreaming aspect. And she is Lieutenant Jha. Thank you. Two minutes.
Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. Good afternoon, all. As a woman in the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces, I believe that I would not have the opportunity to be here this afternoon if the army was anti-gender. Because as you can see, among the men, I'm the only woman. That's because I'm also part of the media team. I'm the only woman there because I have a degree, a BA Honors in Mass Communications. For the Army, increasing gender participation is not just about putting any woman anywhere. It's about putting a woman who is capable. Because I have my degree, I was brought into the media unit from the training unit. So, and also I was also brought into this Army as a result of the all-female recruitment by the Army. That in itself was a drive to ensure that women get into the Army and they have the open space to progress. Currently, we are not discriminated against when it comes to studies. In fact, our male counterparts are sometimes jealous because they say we go to missions more than they do. So they normally complain. They say we have more opportunities than they do, because for now, whoever comes, you come to missions, causes, they always ask for more women. So our male counterparts in recent times feel discriminated against. So I'll conclude by saying the Army is doing all it can to help women and to push us, if only we push ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's unfortunate that we don't give loud applause when military men conduct press conferences. Otherwise, she deserved nothing less. I think she has addressed the next item that Chadi raised, which is about serving women, not giving the respect and recognition they deserve. And she has amply alluded to the sort of respect that she had in the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces and how she's a respected media practitioner. She's going places, that I can assure you. And there are so many of them out there that are in peacekeeping missions. Peacekeeping missions. In fact, we have to bend the rules backwards a bit just so that we accommodate some of them. Yeah. Because you can imagine somebody who, let's say, the peacekeeping deployment comes with competencies. Competencies that states you must have achieved 5 years service, you must have attained the rank of a captain, you must be in the, they come with competencies or criteria based. And we have to bend the rules backwards just so that we can accommodate them. And as we speak, they are about 28%. They form 28% of the female commitment in, as far as SierraLeone is concerned, deployed to peacekeeping missions. We have them all over. All over. On that score, I'd just like to perhaps sadly note that we lost one who was deployed in Central African Republic, Captain Christiana Fefegula, and she'll be laid to rest on the 8th. It's unfortunate, in the service of duty, she lost her life. I mean, there can be no other commitment than this, than the ultimate. And that was exactly what she paid. She paid it in another man's land, in another country, in delivering peace to that part of the world, Central African Republic. And she died. Her remains was flown in on Monday, and like I said, she'll be buried on the 8th. Yeah. So moving on, perhaps I'll call on the acting director of Public Relations and Information System to just throw some perspective into the one or two areas, and then I'll come back and conclude. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, sir, the Assistant Chief of Defense Staff, Operations and Plans. I'll look at specifically the point which says opinion that for far too long women have been subjected to gender-based discrimination and violence in the workplace with no one held accountable. I would say this is a fallacy of hasty conclusion. I repeat, it is a fallacy of hasty conclusion. Based on what the Director of Gender and Equal Opportunity stated to you, please have this on record that the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces in the sub-region had the first female promoted to Brigadier General and appointed Assistant Chief of Defense Staff, equal gender and equal opportunities. So it is on record. If you say for far too long women have been discriminated in the armed forces, this is not factually correct. It's not factually correct. Quite apart from that, the empowerment, 100 million empowerment grants to RSLAF women in the Republic of Sierra Leone Armed Forces recently was presented by Madam First Lady to women of the Republic of Sierra Leone and not men. Is this not discriminating against men? We have a lot of activities that are plan towards women empowerment in the Republic of Southern Armed Forces. Hey, to come up with this type of report to us, we are taking it from this point, but I think I will respect that opinion, but I will state that it is not factually correct. And we have to do due diligence in the reporting, because Chadi, as a local and international organization that is very credible, putting a report like this in the media or to the general public will definitely hamper our chances for peace support operations. Is that nationalistic? This is an armed forces that is reputable, an armed forces that stood the test of time. This is an armed forces that was serving in the global peace index as one of the best in the sub-region. And sometimes if we want to put on certain reports, we are not against reporting for the RSLAF or against the RSLAF. But please do us something right. Please check for accuracy and balance, and above all, credibility. It's very, very important. Remember, if we are having this type of report out, and you cannot substantiate this report with evidence and facts, it is not a credible report. So, it is very important that I state that in the Republic of Southern Armed Forces, when it comes to gender and equal opportunities, the Republic of Southern Armed Forces, I will not boast, is doing it best. And lastly, say, with no one held accountable. Let me go back to pointers. There were senior officers that were dismissed from the Republic of Southern Armed Forces based on sexual harassment policy and fraternization. The list goes. I will not name names, but you are journalists, do your research, you will get that. Senior serving officers in the ranks of lieutenant colonels, and also a warrant officer in one of the brigades or units was reduced to sergeant based on this. Corporals were reduced to private. Some soldiers were dismissed. It is not a pointer, it is not evidence that the Republic of Southern Armed Forces is not condoning sexual harassment in the armed forces. In the first place, if they want to do that, why do we have policies in place? Because we have set policies to checkmate all this in terms of serving personnel. I think members of the fourth estate, we must commend the Republic of Southern Armed Forces in terms of gender and equal opportunity. Without much ado, I thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you very much to the Director for that elucidative perspective. I think it's about time I put a final cut into why we're here. And I'd simply like to say that the opinion that for far too long women have been subjected to gender-based discrimination and violence in the workplace with no one held accountable is certainly not true. And consistent with the government's existing policies on gender-based, gender mainstreaming, there's so much going on in the Republic of SierraLeone forces. So much. That speaks to how far we've come. And it is important to also underscore that, like the acting director of PR and Naval mentioned, Sierra Leone at a point happened to boast of the very first female brigadier in the person of Brigadier General Kestora Kabia. Though she's retired now, but there are plans in place to ensure that the existing crop of female officers are given the right training and competencies that they deserve to make it up the ladder as well, so that they too can go up the chain and take on command positions. It is very important. The thing is, as far as we are concerned in the Republic of SierraLeone forces, we don't just promote simply because of the agenda, no. The Army is a unique institution, where an institution that is based on competences, because the decision between life and death can be so split, such that you need to take those decisions, and you should be able to do so with the right kind of attitude and training. And so we're very much fashioned as an institution on the way people make upward mobility in terms of career progression. We're very much important. We take cognizance of that. And so, but lastly, the lack of accountability for official misconduct and mechanisms to hold perpetrators accountable at all levels of the army. Well, this again is not true. It just mentioned that there are a number of officers who have been held accountable, officers being dismissed, warrant officers being reduced in rank. There are measures in place, and these are the trade-off as far as consequences are concerned. And that's why we have the policy approach to also address those issues. And our policies are clear. Our policies are clear as far as issues of fraternization, issues of gender-based violence, issues of sexual harassment are concerned. Come on, we are aspiring to go to the UN. And so the UN does not accept any, what I would call sexual exploitation and abuse. They don't. They don't. There's no way a nation can make it to the UN if you are known for sexual exploitation and abuse. You can't. And so it's important that as an institution, we look inwards, we clean our act, we have the policy approach, we have what it takes to ensure that we're not found wanting. And so for the charter reports to lay claims that are unfounded, I think is rather unfortunate. We are open. Charlie can come to my office tomorrow. We can sit together to look at their research and ensure that we come up with logical conclusions as an institution. Thank you very much. Perhaps to conclude, I'd like to just say that again, the senior management, on behalf of the senior management of the Ministry of Defense, we're calling on Charlie to be aware that they have unfettered access to credible information if only they choose to approach us. And so it's important, and bearing in mind that we're an institution that protects our personal human rights, we have no reason whatsoever to shrug the protection of human rights in the Republic of SierraLeone Armed Forces, none whatsoever. And so they are open to visit us at any time. And on that score, I pray that we continue to uphold the exemplary performance and standards which we've attained as a nation and through subsequent years as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Distinguished colleagues, it's been a long trailer for us for this first press briefing for January 2022. I believe most of us were thinking the military cannot speak, they are action-oriented people. But today we know they can speak and they can articulate their issues clearly. And from the background that I started from, I think I started with, they've taken the issues point by point, and this is how military do theirs. It's different from our own normal procedure, but they've taken the press release line by line, and you've heard it, what they've said. So on this note, I just want to note that I think I recall one of my trainings at the diplomatic missions with the acting director there, the psychology of communication, the intention of writing reports and what we intend doing. It's something that matters. So we take that into consideration seriously. So on this note, I would like to invite pressmen and women, just limit our questions, 1 or 2, so that we have time to go to bed for those of us that are going to the press to write our reports. Okay, so as usual, just identify tell us your name and the media institution.
I'm a member of the Watch newspaper. I just want to throw a light at what the coordinator said. We've got various speakers here from the Sweden military, and if we're permitted to ask 2 questions, they may not be there. So I would like to ask each one of them 1 question. Will you permit me, sir?
As long as if you limit your question to few seconds and no background.
First of all, let me begin with the director of gender, sir. You've talked about gender empowerment in the Sweden military force, and I think I may be right to say that in the military is etiquette that matters and not what we call. It's not a question of saying that promotions are not based on possessing honorary degrees, but it's a question of etiquette. Now, you said, could you give us a classification of how many women are brigaders, lieutenants, colonels, and all that in the Swedish military force to see whether there's a gender equality or not? Now, I'll come to my brigadier. Yes, sir. You will agree with me that Chad is not the first international organization to accuse the military, not only in Sweden, but all over the world, of sexual violations even though they go to war. It's not the first time. The UN has done that, the Commonwealth, the European community, and even NATO equal as well, from our own investigative point of view. Did you establish a link? Were you permitted to establish a link? Or were the names of these women, the 20 women, mentioned in the report to enable the Swedish military to establish a direct link whether they confessed to charity or they didn't confess, or it was just a creation of charity?
Maybe that should have been a question for charity. To mention the names.
This is our opportunity to ask innocent questions. We're innocent about it.
But it's not in the report.
The
names are not in the report.
This also includes the 200 gender cases which are mentioned here. And we're having a very serious problem which you may know in SierraLeone. Now, is a gender empowerment bill in Parliament, which has been blocked there for the past 3 months, and we in the media have been preaching for it to be approved as well, and asked. So our preoccupation is this, sir.
He's protected, please. Let's. Please. Can you speak to me?
You got no right to intervene what I'm saying. Amen.
Okay, I'll stand you down. I think I'm the presider here.
It's okay, sir. I'm sorry.
You are protected, I said.
I'm sorry. You should wait for his turn.
You have the right to stand him down.
Land now.
Excuse me. You should wait for his turn, sir. You should wait for his turn. I don't give it there.
Are you attacking your
I'm sorry for my behavior.
No, you shouldn't.
No, you can't stop me. You can't stop me. Yeah, you should understand. I'm a journalist. I'm a citizen. I know where you come from. I know where you come from. You will not come in here. It's only to them for you. You forget about me, Tamara. Yes, sir.
Okay, I will stand you down if you have any comments after this. Talk through the chair, please.
Mr. Chair.
Talk through the chair. I said you are protected. You have up to 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. So the medical doctor, sir, you agree with me that SierraLeone patients going to hospitals have been experiencing quite a lot of problems in terms of X-ray machines. At Current Hospital, quite a lot of people have died because of respiratory diseases. Would you agree with me that the Ministry of Health and Sanitation has to do more to ensure that we have a valuable
So the question to Ministry of Health and Sanitation, sir. Thank you very much. And I'll advise, stand down now, I'll advise pressmen and women to allow the officers to concentrate on the questions. Later you can take their names or ask me, I'll do that. Please. Now, I go over to Mr. Kamara. You have the microphone in front of you. You can press, okay.
I choose this one, sir. My question is for Brigadier General Ronnie Harrison. Given the sequential order of this research by Chadi, model in what many describe as an unfairly balanced approach due to the lack of consultation with the appropriate authority, do you see this as an insider's assistance that discreetly but wrongly aided in this research? What would be the line of action of senior management, the Ministry of Defense, by way of understanding if there is an obvious suspicion into all of these? Thank you, sir.
Right.
That was how a brilliant journalist.
Excuse me, I have the permission to terminate anybody inside this conference hall that does not go by the chair. Okay, any other?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me take just two more, then we have the first set of answer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Samuel Ibrahim Koroma is my name, and I work for a while in television. I'll sway a bit as to what Raman has already said. But however, I wanted to delve into issues having to do with procurement within the army. But taking into cognizance the seriousness in perhaps, and I think the manner to which procurement is most times done, how critical it is, I'll not go into that one. But however, the Norwegian project, Brigadier General Halston, will you say so far the army is pleased as to the impact of that project within the Republic of SierraLeone Forces? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last person there before we take the response, please. Adi.
I'm Adeyemi and I work for Freedom Radio, also Justice Media. My question, maybe any of you guys can answer the question. It's about, in late July 2021, according to Charlie, the head of gender equality opportunities wrote a letter to the bank. Can you tell us which bank? And also, this matter was under, I believe this matter is still under investigation by the Anti-Corruption Commission in terms of requesting that you have an opportunity to get access to the remaining balance of the money which was given by the Norwegian government to support gender equality promotion in the army. Did you inform the ACC about your step in terms of requesting that change of signatory so that you can get access to the 49,000 remaining in the bank? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before the response, can my technician bring the mic in front of the speakers here and not use this other one, leave that one. But before then, let me just make an addendum to what I said earlier on pressmen and women, especially senior colleagues. Young people that are coming from the university are learning from you, and we are in front of the camera. And so we need to keep decorum whilst the chair addresses the press briefing. And let's take note and take that into consideration to calm down, please, and respect our profession on the standards and ethics. Thank you very much. Let's start with Generals.
Thank you. I think in no particular order, perhaps I request that we in no particular order, I think I would request that the Director of Gender starts with the very last question. It talks about the bank and whether there was reference to the ACC for consultations as to our reference to the bank. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. In the first place, the Ministry of Defense did not write directly to the bank. The Ministry of Defense doesn't work like that. And anything dealing with finance to the Accountant General's department, that tells you that we know how to do our business and we go through the right channel. That's what I can say on that. Thank you.
I think there's one for...
I have another one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and thank you, my friend here, and in the area of promotion. Yes, I'm happy to inform you that I was once Director of Personnel at the Ministry.
Well, I am here to speak on issues related to Ministry of Defense and not Ministry of Health. So, if maybe I realign that, I will tell you that the Ministry of Defense, in fact, has done a lot to improve on the administrative imaging services. And I'm sure very soon, probably somebody like you or any other citizen will begin to benefit from that.
Thank you very much. I think to Abdul Rahman's question on whether there's an insider as far as the charity report is concerned, I think it goes without saying. If you look at the report itself, I mean, there's no two ways how Charlie could, pinpoint certain issues as highlighted in the report itself. But what is clear is that perhaps the insiders are not fully up to speed as to what is happening, and Charlie was misled in the circumstance. Thank you. But we're investigating, and at the end of the day, we're hoping, like I said, Charlie should, be free to come to us, to knock on our doors. There's a Freedom of Information Act nowadays, and it's open to them. They should use all of those recourse. They have them at their disposal to ensure that they channel their questions, if they have any, to the senior management. We're quite open. We've had consultations with them in the past on other issues, and so I see no reason why this should be different this time around, So definitely there's, an insider approach to it, but unfortunately the reflections were not correct, and so we are at liberty to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On that note, I know you want to go to bed and you have your reports to write. I must caution you that the military is an institution and they have their own protocol, and this was why, guided by those principles, they've introduced what we call now the Media Relations Department, for which we even assigned a government information officer who is not already there, but I think I'll do that. And the right to access to information, we all know, there is a procedure. So you can ask more questions after here, set an agenda with the I think you have your colleague here with them now in the military. And